Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. Today I have my son, Sam Anderson, chatting to me. And
Hmm.
it's his first time on my show, but I've been on his a couple of times. So welcome, Sam.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Dad. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's lovely to see you. It feels like I haven't seen you for ages, but it was only last week.
Yeah, yeah, not too long, and then you'll see me in 2 weeks. Well, a week on Saturday or Friday. You'll see
Yeah,
me again.
yeah, looking forward to it. And you can bring
Mm,
back some valuable goods that we left with you.
yes,
Yeah, little Arthur, our little pug zoo.
yes.
Yeah, thank you for looking after him, by the way.
No, it's an absolute pleasure to look after him. He's as good as gold.
Well, obviously the reason for chatting with you is actually because I wanted to ask you what inspired you to start podcasting, because a lot of people won't know this, but you've actually got your own
Hmm.
YouTube channel, The Simple Life with Sam. Why? What made you do this?
Well, it probably began the first idea or the first ideas I had about it back in 2020 is when I first started figuring out what I wanted to do next because I didn't want to stay in an office job 9 to 5, looking at walls constantly throughout my whole day, not getting any sunlight or anything like that. So I thought about what I could do or what I wanted to do, what my passions were. And then the more I thought about it and just started diving deeper into what I enjoy, it was learning, just learning about myself, personal growth, um, personal development, mindfulness, meditation, stoicism. And the more I started learning about it and seeing how much it inspired me and how much it helped me, I wanted to do that with other people. I wanted them to also be able to experience what I've learned and share that knowledge with them. And it's whilst I'm also learning from other people on the podcast, it then will also help other people. They can learn from it as well, maybe pick up something they didn't think about before. Maybe they'll pick up something they didn't know about, like how important practicing mindfulness can be, or having a meditation every morning or every night, picking up a book and reading that and seeing what they can learn from it. So it was to educate myself, but also to educate other people about themselves, their own personal growth, and their own journey through life.
So was this sparked by something? Had you seen a podcast, or were you following any podcasters that made you think, yeah, this is something I want to do? Was there anybody that gave you some inspiration out there?
I watched, well, I've watched Joe Rogan for quite a while now, and then I also started watching Chris Williamson, Diary of a CEO, Andrew Huberman, and a few others as well. And I just really enjoyed it. I just learned so much from them. And then I thought, what's stopping me from doing this as well? It's a really informative way to gain knowledge and to have just a deep conversation with someone, which I think we are lacking in today's society, having them deep conversations. And we forget how important they are. And just we can learn so much from them about ourselves and about the world around us. And by watching them, it just made me think, yeah, I could do this too. And I started to just crack on with it.
What are your thoughts on Joe Rogan, just as a side issue? What do
Ah,
you think? Gun to your head, what do you think? Because for me, I think he's a psyops. But what do you
yeah.
think?
I have heard a lot about that recently, about his controlled opposition and sort of being the middleman, getting good people on that do have important information to share with us about the truth. And then you see he gets other people on like Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk and other people like that. So I can see why people think he is a psyop or controlled opposition. I personally don't know, but it seems to be more likely that people are starting to see that now, that he is a psyop. And it wouldn't surprise me if he was, to be fair. It's hard to tell these days who is and who isn't. So I'm skeptical of him, but I'll still watch certain podcasts of his, certain episodes that are with people I enjoy and know that are spreading good, important information. So with like if he has Jordan Peterson on, if he has Andrew Huberman on, people like that I'll still watch, or Billy Carson, but other ones I don't really pay much attention to, like Mark Zuckerberg, because I know I
Mm.
don't I don't follow him. I know he's one of the people that try and control and manipulate people and spread fear. So yeah, I'm hit and miss with him, but I wouldn't, it's hard to say really, but I just don't know. It's a hard one, but I
Yeah.
would not be surprised if he was a psyop. I'm more leaning towards that, but at the end of the day, it's just hard to say really.
Yeah, I think he seems incredibly close to Trump and Musk, and that
Yeah.
concerns me. And when Billy Carson came on, who I'm not sure about really, I used to be a huge fan of his, and that's sort of dwindled a little bit. And now when I look at him, he looks like a rapper. And then you see him with his
Mm.
wife or girlfriend, I'm not sure which she is, but she looks like a model. And I think, well, what is going on here? This is bling bling. This isn't a Graham Hancock.
Yeah.
This is I am looking at someone who you know looks like they've just produced a hip hop promo or something, but yeah, I used to love watching Joe Rogan, and now he just seems like a PR machine for the establishment a lot of the time. Um, so what would you say is the main focus for the Simple Life with Sam?
It's in the title, simple. I want to keep things simple. And I think people confuse simple with boring. And it's not the case at all. It's, for me, it's making my life simple by following things and learning things about myself instead of making everything complicated. So I do believe we complicate things way more than they should be. So mine's just a simple life, learning the things about myself, learning about the world around me, so it can help me to live a more simple life, less confused about myself and the world around me, more in control of myself and my actions and what I do on a day-to-day basis. Because I think a lot of people are just happy to just let them be told what to do, let someone else control their life for them. So for me, it is just about making my life simple. And that is what the main message of it, my podcast is, just making life simple for yourself.
You touch on some well, quite tough subjects. The interview you did recently, um, which sort of went down to the sort of suicide route. I thought that was a really brave thing to put out there, and obviously your guest, who I've known since he was a little lad, I thought
Mm,
that was incredibly humbling to watch
yeah,
that, and I thought he was very brave, and I thought it was brave of you to put that out there. Um, but that aside, obviously, I always refer to you as my little Yoda, because you're so wise, and you've studied Stoicism for a very long time as well, and that's something that perhaps people, I think everybody should really look into. And
yeah.
is that something you think you'll maybe put more content out there about, over the coming months or this year, perhaps?
Yeah, I think so. Going touching back, so I do like to touch on big topics as well, ones that go under the radar, like men's mental health and suicide prevention, which I think is important that not many people are talking about, and there's not much support for them. So I do touch on important subjects that I think people need to hear about. And then obviously I go into like conspiracies as well and certain ones because it's for me, my podcast is mine. So I want to talk about things I want to talk about and that interest me. But with Stoicism, yeah, I do want to put more content out there. I do have an episode as well in the bank that I'm going to release soon that talks about Stoicism. But I'm also thinking about and will plan on doing releasing shorts, just like maybe a
Yeah,
few minutes, just about Stoicism, because people can really benefit from learning about this. It's not just, and I think this is where people can get confused, especially the female side. A lot of them believe it's just for men. It's a male sort of philosophy or a male sort of topic that only men can learn about, which isn't the case at all. And the main point of Stoicism that I found is focusing, well, it's the dichotomy of control, focusing on what you can control and letting go of what you can't.
Mm.
And once you sort of master that, or once you start learning about that, it makes your life so much simpler. Focusing on just what you can, which is your mindset, your actions, the effort you put into what you do, your opinions, your thoughts, what you take in. So the news, the social media, what type of social media you put in to your mind. So I do want to touch on Stoicism a lot more in the future because it's something that's really helped me. And I think it can help a lot of other people as well.
I think Marcus Aurelius is someone that everybody should perhaps spend a few minutes having a look at, and his backstory is fascinating as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I do enjoy reading his work, and I think people can hugely benefit from doing that. And I think you're probably more orientated that way and more knowledgeable about Stoicism than anybody I know, and at such a young age as well.
Hmm. Yeah, it's important. It's a really important thing to learn, Stoicism, an important philosophy that's just really helped me in my life. And I think it can help a lot of other people. But for Marcus Aurelius, I definitely recommend people just watching some videos about him, or at some point, if they want to, they can buy his book, Meditations, which is an absolute game changer. It's full packed of information and just basically his diary that it wasn't meant to be published. It was never meant for the public, but we've managed to come along this masterpiece and it's changed so many people's lives, mine included. So I definitely recommend people look into him. Epictetus as well, Seneca, they're like the three main Stoics that people can look into. But if you want sort of a basic understanding of it, if you want to dive into it first, Ryan Holiday was the one who got me into it. So I recommend people looking him up on YouTube and just going through some of his videos because he has 5 minute, 10-minute videos that just break down some of the points of Stoicism that people can just look into and just go, okay, I'm sort of understanding this. And then they can dive deeper into it and start reading the big books like Marcus Aurelius and others.
Yeah. My next question is, if you could have anybody on your show, anybody at all, dead or alive, even, excluding Marcus, who would you have? Who would you most like to sit and chat with? Who would you most like to interview?
Oh, it's hard to pinpoint just one person. There's a few people I would probably want to have. I think if we're going for people that have passed away, one person that popped into my mind was Alan Watts and what I've learned from him about Zen Buddhism, life, sort of mindset you want to adapt. He's just someone that read quite a few books on, well, a few of his books, and watched some of his lectures as well. And the way he just goes on about life, it's incredible. I mean, he talks about this story. I don't know if he came up with it or not, but he talks about the old Chinese farmer. And it's basically a story. I won't tell the whole story because it's be a few minutes, but it's basically where something happens to the farmer. For example, he lost his horse, and then people would go up to him and say, "Oh, that's so horrible, that's so bad." And you just go, maybe. And then later on, the horse would come back with quite a few wild horses, and everyone would be like cheering, going, "That's amazing, that's great, that's awesome." And then he'd go, maybe. And it's just basically the point of we don't know whether or not these things that happen to us are good or bad. It's just the way the universe works and the way life works. Because sometimes a good consequence could always also lead to a bad consequence. And it's just basically realizing that life is just the way it is. It just happens that way. There's no good or bad. It is just life. It's the way it happens. So for me, it like really helped me as well, learning from him. But for people that are alive, I'd probably also say Joe Dispenza is he someone I've really enjoyed learning from, especially his book, Becoming Supernatural. And that was basically why I really got into learning about the mind, the subconsciousness, and how if you really want to create change in your life, you need to be completely in the present moment. So he was someone that I learned a lot from, learning about different types of meditations you can do. He also taught me how the body, I've heard it from other people as well, but from him, it really struck like it really struck me because he talks about how we can heal the body just with the mind itself and just from the way our energy is, and how we have to sort of get that higher level of consciousness, that higher level of energy, and the body can heal itself. And he's in his book, he mentions different people that have gone through this as well, through his learning about how they've healed themselves from even like things like cancer. So he's really, really interesting. He's done a few podcasts as well. He's been on a few people's podcasts. So definitely recommend people checking him out and getting this book, because he's someone that really, really changed the game. He's someone that's just incredible to learn from. And it's just all about again, it goes back to taking control of your life. You're the one that is in control of it. You're the one that has the power. You just have to take action. If you keep thinking in the same way, if you're depressed, for example, if you keep thinking in the same mindset, you're just going to stay depressed. So you need to change your mindset. You need to change you, and then the world of you and the world around you will change. So Joe Dispenza is another one. Excuse me. And I'd also probably do Ryan Holiday, just because of how much I learned from him about Stoicism. And he's like the master of Stoicism in today's society. So to learn from him personally and speak with him, I think that'd be an incredible thing to do. There's a few others as well. I could go on, but I think there are a few people that I would like to interview and have on the podcast. I think there'd be great conversations to have, really powerful ones.
Have you reached out to any of them? Obviously,
yet.
Alan Watts, you can't. But
no, that'd be nice if I could, but no, not of them, not yet. I do want to reach out to them at some point. I think once I've got the home studio built, I can then actually get them round as well, as maybe at some point interview them here or through Zoom or something like that. But there are people I have in my mind, and there are people I do have on my list of people that I do want to interview at some point. And I will be doing that. I'm confident that will happen at some point in the future. When, I can't confirm, but it will happen. I'm sure of it.
Alan Watts, for me, has got one of those voices a bit like Morgan Freeman. You can listen to him for hours. I remember listening to a lecture he was given, and a girl in the audience just shouted out and said, "Will you marry me?" And he just said, "No," and carried on talking. He just handled it really well. But from what I've read about him, he was a bit of a player, wasn't he?
I've heard that as well. Yeah, he's been around a bit. He's the way he talks in his lectures, just they're entertaining as well. They're not so serious. He talks about serious things, but he just explains them in a calming way and a funny way as well at times. There's also someone else. I hope I've got the name right. George Carlin. I think that's his name.
Yeah.
He's like a comedian as well, but he talks about some serious points.
Yeah, he does. He's very good.
Yeah, he's interesting.
He goes to the same barber as me.
Yeah, that makes sense. But he'd be a good one to do as well. A few people I have in my mind that I'd just like to learn from, and it's really helped me.
Okay, next question for you. What are the most important aspects of our lives that we need to overhaul?
Most important aspects. The main aspect would be our health. And it's three parts to that. It can be mental health, physical health, and your spiritual health. So if taking control of your health is so important, it's one of the most important things, if not the most important thing you can do. Because especially in today's society, there's not really much help with that. You sort of have to do your own independent research or follow those that you can trust and that are reliable. People that talk about natural health, natural resources, natural remedies, they're the ones that you sort of want to sort of listen to. If not, do your own research so you can have full trust in what you found. So health would be the most important thing, I would say. But I would also say your mindset is quite important as well. I guess that goes back to your mental health, and your mental health also affects your physical health and vice versa. Your mind, body, they work in harmony. So taking control of your mindset and getting it back into a positive state. And I understand not every day or not every minute of every day you're going to be positive, but it's having that control over your mind to get back into that state, not staying in a depressive state for a few days and just letting it take control of you. It's sort of having that discipline where you are the one in control of your own mind and you are the one in control of your own body. It's like some people, if they need to get up early in the morning for gym, go do exercise. Instead, they're so comfy and they're in their warm bed and they're letting their body take control of them. It's whilst it may feel great, in the long run, it's not going to help you. You need to have that control over your body by having control over your mind. So health and having control and taking control back of your mindset and having a positive mindset are probably the two most important aspects I can think of, because your health also involves those you have around you, I would say, and what you listen to, what you put into your mind and what you put into your body. So this can be the news you watch, the people you have on social media, what you watch on YouTube, or what people watch on like programming like Netflix or something like that. You need to really take it in and really understand what you are watching and what you are putting into. Because as we know, everything is made up of frequency, energy, and vibration. And so all these different things have a different type of energy, have a different type of frequency. And so not all of them are going to be positive. Not all of them are going to be high frequencies. You are going to get some negative ones, and you want to do your best as you can to avoid them, because that's just going to bring you into a low energetic state, a low frequency, which will then will then cause you to start feeling ill or depressed or anxious, a number of things. But taking back control of that is what's going to help you the most.
And you mentioned spirituality there. I mean, where do you lie with that? So if you were going to, just as an example, if you were going to pray, who would you be praying to? A man in the clouds, or is there something else that you resonate and connect with?
No, not a man in the clouds. I respect people that do believe that. I have no problem with that. But it's everyone's choice what they do. But for me, I think with spirituality, I think a lot of people get confused what it is. Like I remember someone before who I know, they said they're so spiritual, they're a really spiritual person. I went, oh, why'd you say that? And they go, oh, I've got all these crystals. I'm like, okay, what about them? Because they're on my shelf. They're so pretty to look at. I'm like, so that makes you spiritual? Like, well, how does that work? Or some people who just read tarot cards and they think I'm spiritual. I have these tarot cards. I can read your future. It's like, but how does that make you spiritual? It's that's and then they sort of freeze a little bit. It's not no people if they enjoy tarot cards or crystals, that's absolutely fine. I think they can be quite good in certain ways if you know how to use them. But for
Yeah,
me,
if
yeah, the big part if, which some people just have because they feel like they're spiritual with them. So there's other things that make people feel spiritual, like I meditate, I'm a spiritual person, but it's not necessarily a spiritual thing. It's sort of getting out of your own head in a way.
mm,
So for me, spiritual is for me what I found being spirit. Well, the term spiritual, and from my understanding, it's inner growth, focusing on your inner growth, focusing on you inside, your mind, your body, having that mind body connection, listening to your body as well, what it's telling you, what it's saying to you. So spiritual for me, spirituality is focusing on your inner growth. And that's a big part of you, big part of your life, big part of your journey to focus on that. Because if you're not, and you're just staying in the sort of same place and you're stagnant, where's the growth? Where's the positivity in that? It's just your basic daily routine. And it sort of gets a bit depressing in a way if you're
yeah,
just constantly doing the same thing in and out, eating the same thing in and out. What what is the point in that? Is that's not what life is about growing, evolving, having all these different sort of experiences, having all these sort of different emotions and feelings, having all these different thoughts. But if you're just having the same routine, you're just going to end up having the same thoughts every day. And then again, you just got stuck in that routine and you're just going to feel eventually you just start to feel depressed.
yeah.
So yeah, it goes back to inner growth for me for spirituality and focusing on that, which I do try to do most days.
Who do you think we're connecting to when we do that,
Who is an interesting
or what?
question.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think we're connecting with ourselves, but I also think if we're going back to praying, when some people you can sort of say manifesting, I would say it's the universe, the that higher level of consciousness I think you're trying to get to, or you're trying to connect with. Because with manifestation, you can also link it to the law of attraction. And if you're focused, if you're what you're putting out is what you're going to receive back. So if you're feeling negative, you're feeling that low energy, you're going to receive that back. Whereas you're putting that high energy out, you're going to get that back. And it's a lot of work. I think with manifestation, if you want to link it to praying, you're putting your full concentration on it, your full, every thought you have, or most thoughts every day, you want to be focusing on what that is. So for someone who, I don't know, wants more money, they say, I want more money, I want more money. They've got to focus on that constantly and attract that energy. They've got to attract that with the law of attraction, but it also doesn't work. And I think this is where some people go a bit wrong with manifestation, is you've also got to believe it, not just say it for the sake of it. Now, you hear some people talk about affirmations in the morning, or they'll say them at night, say like, I am powerful, I'm healthy, whatever they want to say. But if they don't believe it in themselves, it's not going to happen for them. You need to actually believe it. No, already start living like it's, you are healthy, you are strong, you have that money. You need to actually believe it, start acting like you do have it. Otherwise, you're not going to attract it. You just sort of, it's just not going to happen for you. Or it may take a very, very long time for you to actually realize this is something's gone wrong. What's happening? This isn't happening for me. And you need to be very precise as well with what you're praying to or what you're manifesting. Because if you just say, I want loads of money, it's then like, when do you want it? It could take up to 80 years or like 50 years or so for you don't naturally get it. You need to say, I want, I don't know, £1 million by the 1st of January 2026. You need to be exact, you need to be precise in that, because otherwise the universe won't know. It will just sort of say, okay, you want it, I'll take a few years for you to get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it goes to back to, I think, a higher consciousness, a higher level of consciousness is what you're connecting with. And you sort of want to get onto that sort of level, onto that frequency. And you need to, again, you need to concentrate on that, put all your energy into that. Otherwise it just won't happen.
And so do you believe that that works? Do you think that
I do, just from my own experience, like with the podcast. I mean, I talked about it for a little while until I actually started. I mean, I'd say it as well. I'd tell people, yeah, I'm going to start a podcast, but then nothing would happen until I actually started getting more direct with it and started actually believing it, started imagining myself on recording and actually doing a podcast. And once I started doing that, it happened very, very quickly for me. Everything sort of came together. So as long as I started believing it and putting more concentration into it, it actually happened. But nothing will happen if you don't take action. You can't just expect it to happen the next day or happen in a few days' time or months' time. You actually need to put in the effort for it. It's like if you want a new job, but then you're not doing anything about it, it's not going to happen. You can't. It's not just going to all of a sudden appear. You actually need to put in some sort of action, some sort of effort to actually achieve it. So for me, yeah, it has happened for me, I think, a few times. It just takes up a lot of energy and a lot of concentration, a lot of action, a lot of work. But it does. I do believe it is real. I think because we're all energy. We're all made up of a certain frequency, a certain vibration. And if you can get on the same vibration or same frequency as what you're attracting, then there's no reason for why it can't happen.
We need good vibrations.
Yes, as the song says.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say you do differently now than you did, I don't know, 5 years ago?
Oh, 5 years ago. I would say there's a few things that come to mind. I think 5 years ago, I was sort of slowly started getting onto this part of my journey. Like, I won't go into detail, but yeah, 2020 is when I sort of went, well, when I went to Portugal and had that retreat that I went on to, really benefited from that. So from 5 years ago to now, I meditate. I never used to really meditate, or I'd hear about it, wouldn't do it. I really wouldn't understand why people do it. I didn't put effort into it back then. So meditation is something I do that I didn't do 5 years ago. Journaling, which I think is really important. I do that now.
Do you do that daily?
I aim to do it daily. Yeah, maybe not. Sometimes I may miss a day, but I
Mm.
normally will aim to do that daily. With journaling, I also practice gratitude as well, which I do daily as which I do daily. Um, so this can be even for the little things because I think we forget that how much we have in our own lives. Like for example, you could be having a shit day and you just forget about the little things you have in your life. Like something I always say in the morning is I'm always grateful to be alive because I've woken up. Like I'm here. Like this is great. Like some people, like unfortunately, people pass away every day,
Yeah,
but I'm still here. So
it's funny you
gratitude.
saying that because your granddad, my dad, he's always been like that. If you any morning, if you catch him any morning, and you see him literally the moment he gets up, and you ask him how he is, he'll always say the same thing. He says he's fantastic, and it
Mm.
doesn't matter what's going on. He starts his day by telling him and everybody else, telling himself and everyone else that he's fantastic. And if you ask him why, he says what you said. I woke up. I got to live another day.
Yeah, it makes sense. It really does make sense. And even other little things as well. Like, I've eaten today. I've had a warm shower. I've got clothes. I've got a bed. There's so many little things that we forget that we take for granted that not everyone can say they have. Like, I have money in my bank. Like, not everyone can say that. There's so many little things that we do. Well, we don't appreciate, and we go be having a shit day, but then we realize, oh damn, like I'm here, I'm alive. No, I've got a bed, I've got a phone, I've got so many different things. I should be grateful, really, that I've got all of this. I shouldn't let this little thing bother me or whatever it is. So gratitude, I do. Um, the more important thing I think I do as well is we talked about earlier, focusing on my health, getting rid of all these pharmaceuticals and getting rid of all these man-made chemicals in my life and focusing on the natural, the organic, all the healthy things I start putting into my life, getting rid of takeaways and taking more of an interest. I mean, I did do exercise before, I did work out, but maybe not necessarily focus on the food side, on the what I was putting into my body or what I was putting on my body, because people forget that a lot of the chemicals are toxic that are in makeups or in deodorant or in toothpaste, like fluoride, which is actually a poison. Sunscreen. There's so many different things. And I've sort of gotten rid of them. I've noticed improvements in my body and with myself in my mental health as well. I've noticed improvements from avoiding all these things. So yeah, focusing on my health has been something I do differently from 5 years. More taking more of them, focusing more on it and taking it as a priority. I'm sure there's a few other things that I do differently. I read more as well. I think that's important to read. We can learn a lot from books that we may not necessarily learn from watching like a documentary or watching something on YouTube. And I think people just get so invested in TV programs these days on Netflix or Amazon or whatever they're watching. And they're not really, I mean, I understand sometimes it's nice to have a little break just to rewind and watch something. I would always try and watch a comedy if I do, just something that's light-hearted and just makes me laugh and just sort of
Mm.
switch off. But if you're just watching something every day, just all day, it's just it's not really beneficial for you. I don't think that's what life is about. So reading, I do a lot more. Um, I think off the top of my head, that's all I can think of right now. There's many other things I do differently, I'm sure of it, but they're like the main ones I'd say that I do.
Going back to what you said about what you put in your body, I remember when you were interviewed last year by Richard Vobes that you were
Mm,
talking about sunscreen, and you said
yeah.
something along the lines of, if you're not prepared to drink it, why are you rubbing it into your skin? Because one way or another, it's going to get in your bloodstream.
Yeah, you absorb it. Like everything, even like deodorants or makeup, it goes into your body, it absorbs it. So if you're looking on the ingredients of whatever you're putting on there, like sunscreen, if you're looking and saying, I wouldn't eat this, I wouldn't digest this. So why would you put it on your body? It works the
Mm,
same way. Like I think if you don't know what it is that you're putting on there, if you don't know what the ingredient is, why are you using it? Like
yeah.
really just actually look. It doesn't take that long to look at what this is and look at what the negatives can be of this, or if there are any, which I doubt it, what the positives are of this. There are so many natural ingredients and natural remedies we can use that cost a lot less as well. But people would just rather have the easy option saying, oh, this is on the shelf. I don't need to look at what this is. I don't need to research what this is. I can just put it on me and I'm just good to go. But really, you're harming yourself. You're poisoning yourself. And if you end up with some, I believe it's since the invention of sunscreen, melanoma, I think that's what it is increased by like 4 times the amount since sunscreens
Yeah.
existed. Like so many, yeah, so many negatives from sunscreen, so many like parabens in it. It's just harmful. I mean, the sun's, I find it interesting when people think the sun's bad for you. Like, why would we
Mm.
be put on this earth for something to harm us? Why would that happen? Why that doesn't make sense. I think it's sort of a little bit of common sense. Like, and a lot of nature and a lot of ingredients, remedies we can use. But I mean, they're there to cure us, to aid us. Why would they be harmful to us? Why would we avoid using them? I mean, we wouldn't be put on this earth if we didn't have the natural resources to look after us and for us to grow. And like we've managed so many years before without all these sort of different man-made chemicals. Why do we now need them all of a sudden?
Yeah.
It doesn't make
Yeah,
sense
that's
to
very
me.
true. No, that's very true. I remember being in Portugal when you were younger and watching some Portuguese, and that had been in the sun all day, just go over to a cactus, snapped off one of the leaves. Obviously, these are the leaves are on a cactus are obviously a lot different to on other plants. You know, this quite hefty a piece of cactus, and they snapped it and then just wiped it all over their arms and you know their bodies. And I thought,
Mm,
there you go. There's a brilliant example there of people who know what works and what doesn't. I guess similar to why you always find a dock leaf next to a stinging nettle.
yeah,
Nature provides the answer, doesn't it?
yeah, it definitely does. Um, it's very true.
So, just going to change the subject slightly.
Hmm.
What is your favorite conspiracy theory?
Hmm. Oh, where to begin? It's you got to love a good conspiracy these days. There's so many out there. I think a lot of them though aren't necessarily conspiracies anymore. I think a lot of them just sort of come to light, or lots of truth have been shown about them. Like with pharmaceutical companies, everything like that. They're not so longer conspiracies that they're trying to, harm. Like they're trying to cure us. They're actually trying to harm us. It's like why I remember from Family Guy when they found the cure to cancer, but he didn't reveal it. It's like, and they're saying, why wouldn't you do this? It's incredible because, why cure someone in a day when you can build them, when you can give them a pill and build them every step along the way? It's like, no, they're not trying to cure us. They're just trying to keep us ill so they can benefit from it. A pharmaceutical company doesn't benefit from healthy people. But conspiracy wise, I think because there's something I do enjoy, like the moon landing. I think that's a really interesting one, whether or not we did go to the moon. There's so many yes and no's for it. That's a tough one. Um, Antarctica, I think, is a really interesting conspiracy theory as well. And what's actually there, if there's more land past Antarctica, past what they say there's the ice wall. I
Mm,
mean, that one's really interesting, especially when you look at Captain Admiral Byrd's story as well, and what he's documented about it in his own diary, and what he's found there, and how there's natural resources there and land bigger than North America that this just hasn't been told to us as a society. But for me, I think the biggest one that I like, because it can link into so many different ones, is the Vatican archives, the Vatican vaults,
right.
because it's so interesting and it's just so mysterious as well. Like what is down there? I mean, I've got some stuff on it as well, like because I'm just so fascinated by it. It's like miles of secret crypts and catacombs. I believe there's 53 miles of shelf space within the archive. And
Mm,
what they have there, scriptures, scrolls, texts, is dating back thousands of years. And what's I find really interesting is that no one's allowed there. We're not allowed to know about our own history, what they've got down there. It's all confidential, it's all private. You must have permission. And even if you get permission, which I find is really interesting, you need to tell them what you're looking for, the exact document or scroll or scripture. But because no one's been down there, you don't know if it's there or not. You don't know if it exists. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to get turned down, if not 10 times out of 10, because it's very, very rare that they'll let someone down there. So the Vatican archives I find really interesting because I think that what they could have down there is stuff that can reveal and can open up on other conspiracies like Atlantis, the Library of Alexandria, pyramids. When I was doing research before about it, I found that in the 1920s, a Russian professor called, I might get the name wrong, pronounce it wrong, but a Russian professor called Gingrich Ludwig, he was able to have access to the archives, and he came across a section in there that was just full of ancient books about aliens. And he talked about these, and then what he did is he wrote about this as well, what he found. And he talks about these star people came down in crafts, and they taught all the ancient civilizations how to build the pyramids, and also taught the Mayans as well. And then he also wrote down that these aliens, these star people, had weapons, and apparently they used them once on Babylon, and the weapons they used melted the walls of Babylon with the amount of heat and energy that they produced. And when you look at that, you can sort of see, okay, in today we would just consider that nuclear weapons. So that's quite an interesting one. But I think it also opens up other stories as well. From, I reckon, from what they have down there, probably hidden testaments from the New Bible, from the Old Bible, Old Testament as well. Probably there's probably a lot of documents or scrolls about Atlantis, which is one of my favorite conspiracies as well. I reckon they have a lot of information about that. They probably have information about what I mentioned about the pyramids and how to build them, about energy, frequency, and vibrations and how that works. They probably have so much information, like 53 miles of shelf space. They're going to have so much information there
Yeah.
that we're just, for some reason, don't not have access to, which I think is absolutely insane. It's criminal that we should be allowed to know about our own history. I don't know why it's private, why it's all kept off. I mean, I just find that crazy. I think there's so much history, like so much mystery around it, which is why it's probably one of my favorite ones. And I reckon they have some of the scriptures and scrolls and texts from the Library of Alexandria down there that we just don't have access to. And I would love to one day be able to gain access to that and just see what they have. I may not be able to understand some of it because if it's in Latin or different language, but I can obviously get that translated. That'd be great. But yeah, I think that's just incredible. The amount of information they have down there, miles of stuff. And apparently they have just go off. Apparently they have a device called you might know it, chronovisor, which I
As
found.
far as just about to ask you that, have you heard of the chronovisor?
Yeah, it's apparently a device that allegedly captured, this is what I found, allegedly captured a photo of the crucifixion, if you believe that or not. This crucifixion did happen. That's each their own. But yeah, I just found that the other day when I was just doing a little bit of research, which I've heard of it before, but I wanted to get a bit deeper into it. And who knows what else they have down there. There's something that also makes me think about because of that, because I've been to the Vatican.
Yeah, you've been there, haven't you? Yeah.
And yeah, the artwork, the amount of money that's been put into it is astonishing. It's the artwork there, the sculptures, the statues, it's mesmerizing. Don't get me wrong, it's like incredible to look at, but it's crazy when you think about how much power they have. But with the artwork, it sort of makes me think, because this is another conspiracy I can sort of link it with that. I believe a lot of the artwork you see in like museums or galleries is fake. I think a lot of them are just sold in black markets or they're hidden in the Vatican archives, probably. I think like you wouldn't have the Mona Lisa on show ready for someone just to walk in and easily probably destroy it. Like, I don't think you'd have something that valuable just on show, or some of the artifacts you'd find in museums. I don't believe it's real. I believe they're fakes. And I believe people higher up have them, or people from like rich people that go to black markets or black auctions, whatever you call them, and then just buy them behind the scenes and have them in their own house or in their vaults.
I guess the one thing I would want to know is what gives the Vatican the right to hide things from us that we have a right to know. What
Mm,
and quite literally, who died and made them God?
yeah.
If they're doing his work as they claim to be, then what gives them the right to decide what's best for us? Surely that, if
Hmm.
they believe what they, if they practice what they preach, then surely that question isn't for them to answer. It's for a higher being, and they're hiding things from
Hmm.
us that. And my theory is that they're doing that because they don't want us to know the truth.
Truth. Yeah, I'd agree. I would agree.
And I think if we were to find out the truth, then people wouldn't go to church and wouldn't put their hand in their pocket and give to these churches like they do now, and certainly give their lives to the church. And a lot of people, I mean, my I had two great aunties that gave everything to the Catholic Church, everything, including
Hmm.
in the end their house, and for what? And
Hmm.
it turned out in the end that the priest actually took the money for himself and disappeared.
Yeah, I think if we found out the truth about what's down there, it would change the way we live as a society and as a world. Religion would change completely. I think so much of how we live would change. And yeah, it's just crazy to think about that, hiding all this information from us as a society. I mean, why
Yeah,
we should be like information should be free. We shouldn't be have to pay, we shouldn't have to pay for it. I mean, and it shouldn't be kept away from us. It's really interesting that they've done
yeah.
this. It's
In
awful.
America, you've got the Smithsonian Institute in America that hide almost anything anybody finds or uncovers is instantly taken by them. And a few years later, when people start asking where it is, it's in a warehouse that's got an issue with asbestos, or somewhere's
Mhm.
been flooded and damaged, or they've lost it. And I think these people are just vile. And
Yeah.
hopefully one day people will wake up, realize what's going on, and stop playing ball with these essentially these organizations. I mean, the
Yeah.
Catholic Church is just a huge money making machine.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the amount of wealth they have is ridiculous. It's crazy. And I mean, they don't pay tax as well, Catholic Church. I don't churches don't.
Mm,
So like just more money for them. I mean, why do they need all this money? It's crazy to me that they don't
yeah,
need all this. I mean, when I went to the Vatican, you had to pay as well to go around it, to go and see it, like certain parts of it. It's very odd, but that's probably why probably the elites, they run the world in some ways, in some aspects. They probably control a lot of things as well because they have all the information. Who
yeah.
knows what else they have down there? I think there's so much they have that they're just not letting the public know about because it would just change the way we are as a society.
A lot of people aren't aware that there's not just the one pope. They
No,
they just see the white pope all the time and have no idea that there's a black and a
Black
grey
Pope.
as well. And
Yeah.
I've been following Pepe Orsini for a few years now, and
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, the
that
Orsini family is a very powerful bloodline.
mm,
I believe it's part of the 13 bloodlines as well.
yeah,
So
yeah, it is. Yeah.
very powerful bloodline. So,
Who do you think's at the helm of it all? Who do you think
hmm.
is pulling the strings? Who
Mm,
sits right at the top of they call it the pyramid of power, or what? Or, for me it's the parasites, for others it's the Illuminati. I think these things are all connected, but the world monarch, who do you think ultimately is sat at the very top, or what is sat at the very top?
yeah. I mean, it's a tough one to say. I think definitely it's a dark energy, some sort of dark energy, negative energy at the top. But what that that's another question in itself. I I believe from my point of view, I mean, you hear about the Rothschilds, like Rockefellers, George Soros, the Vatican, the Illuminati, the black nobility, the 13 bloodlines. You hear about all these different societies or groups or people. And for me, I don't think the person or the people in charge would reveal themselves. I don't believe we know their names. For me personally, I believe that they've stayed in the shadows, they've hidden in the shadows just so that we don't know who they are. So I believe that people like the Rothschilds and other people that I've mentioned, or groups or societies, they're being controlled, they're puppets for someone else or something else that we don't know because there's There's no text of it. There's no writing of it. There's no communication because it has kept themselves in the dark for so long that maybe those elites don't even know their names as well. Maybe they're not allowed to know them. I just think that seems to be what I believe, because why would you reveal yourself to the public? Why would you let that be known? I mean, the Rothschilds are there in daylight, same as like the Rockefellers or other people, like the nobility, like the 13 bloodlines. So we know them, we're aware of them, so we can look into them. But I think if you're that powerful and you don't want that power to go, you would probably stay in the shadows and you wouldn't have no record of you on there, and you'd stay that way. So maybe that's something of a higher being, maybe something that's a different an entity, maybe something from somewhere else, a different dimension, perhaps. We don't really know that much about how that works. I mean, we have a few ideas and theories, but we don't know really how that works. We don't have the intelligence yet to be able to understand that, the comprehension. So I believe that they're in the shadows. We don't know their names. That's why I would say it's some sort of dark negative energy. Maybe it's people, maybe it's an entity. I don't know, but I believe they're the ones that are controlling the others, and they're doing their biddings for them. They're the ones dictating everything. But I do find it interesting when I look at that, because you obviously, money is what makes the world spin, what controls everything. And you see like the massive share, like companies like BlackRock, and with them, you're allowed to see the shareholders for that, which are like Vanguard, which is one in particular I wanted to say. There's other shareholders, but you can also see the directors and CEOs of BlackRock. But with Vanguard, that's all hidden, that's all private. I mean, you can look into it. I think I found a few stuff like the Bush family and and a few others, but that's not like public. That's not on their website. If you look at the shareholders in Vanguard, you won't be able to find it. It's not on there. It's all hidden. It's all private, confidential, which I find really interesting as well. So I think that could be
That's
something for people to look
unusual.
into. Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I believe I may have it. I may have a see if I've got my notes in my notes, because I believe I did have it at some point.
While you're looking, have you heard the saying that's at the bottom of every rabbit hole there's a black rock with a van guarding it?
Hmm, I haven't, but no, that's clever.
I love that. Yeah,
Mm.
I absolutely love it.
So it's the so apparently the owners of Vanguard, which people have to look into and look it up, but it's meant to be the Bush family, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, and the DuPont family.
Yeah,
That's what I've found, but whether or not, I don't know. But people then again, they're probably controlled like by other people or other entities or something of some sort of negative energy, low energy that's trying to control them, make them put out their whatever they want, their fear, their rules, their message. So yeah, I think they're hidden in the shadows, if I had to say. I don't
yeah.
think we'd know their names. I don't think it's on public, like I don't think it's on YouTube. I don't think it's on BitChute or anywhere. I don't think we'll be able to find it, because then they'll be
Yeah.
revealed and then they'll get scared, I think, and then they'd have to try and do something about that. And I don't think they'd want to go through that in the first place.
I found one organization quite hard to look into, and it was when I was writing my book on Tartaria. And obviously, the whole premise of the book is that there was a big reset that happened, wiped a civilization out, and then here we are again, 250 years later, with another great reset. And I listed all of the people that are in this pyramid of power and all the organizations and think tanks. And
Mm.
the one I could find nothing on was Club of Rome. Now, I looked online everywhere. There was nothing. And if you go on YouTube and just type in Club of Rome, the only podcasts you'll see pop up are their own. No one talks about them. There is nothing. And I've never found that before. I mean, the Bilderberg
Mm.
Group, Trilateral Commission, all of these, the Illuminati, they're dozens, hundreds, thousands, perhaps, podcasts and bits of information. Club of Rome, that's a
I've
different thing altogether.
I've come across them in my book, funny enough, in some of the books I've got. So what I'll do is I'll go through it and I'll send you some screenshots of it, so you can read it as well. But I've definitely come across that in some of the books I've got. I found some information on. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'll have to send you it as well, because I think there's only a little bit on them, a few pages or so, but I'll have to send it
Yeah,
across because it's such a mystery around them as well. There's not much
Yeah,
information. It's interesting why don't want too much information being put out there so people can know
I
their
just
plans or agenda.
I just found it really weird. I mean, I wrote about, I found bits and pieces online and wrote a bit about them, but I just found it so strange that there wasn't a single podcast
Mm,
at the time I was looking, which about a year ago now, that I couldn't find a single one. Not one person had put a podcast out there about Club of Rome. I've heard them mentioned on Richard Vobes has talked about them, and the Y Files, which I
yeah.
like and don't like. They've mentioned them, but there wasn't anything specific. And when you type it in on YouTube, or at least the last time I looked, the only podcasts that came up were their own, the ones they've put out there. And
Yeah,
I found that really, really strange. I mean,
that is.
that's a whole nother level of censorship. I felt so.
Yeah.
They say that they're right at the very top. So maybe, but for me, I think like you, it's some sort of dark energy. So it's something. Maybe it's an Anunnaki still sat there. Maybe Enki never left.
Yeah.
Maybe they live a lot longer than we understand.
I mean, when you look at like certain programs and like certain TV shows with subliminal messaging, they sort of hint, I don't know, it could be like this as well, but you're able to upload your consciousness into a different body. So that's
mm,
maybe how they've done it, how they've survived this long. Because we
mm,
don't know, like if you mentioned like the Anunnaki, we don't know what technology they have. Very, very powerful technology and very, yeah, way more intelligent than us. Their
mm,
technology is way beyond ours, I would imagine, if they can travel to us. So if they could do that, I wouldn't be surprised if they could just move their consciousness into a different body so they can keep living.
mm.
That may be how they're surviving. I'd probably say that it could be likely with them if they can survive that long. Maybe their bodies are just different to ours and how they live. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't be
Or they're
surprised.
immortal. What if they're
Yeah.
immortal? I mean that sort of leans slightly towards vampires, doesn't it? I mean,
Mm,
what if they just keep going? That
yeah.
the film's The Highlander. I mean, maybe there's something in it. Maybe these people just live forever. We just don't know, do we? I mean,
No.
a lot of things that I talk about and you've talked about today, people will instantly dismiss, but they'll
Yeah.
go and watch the films or see the TV series about it and lap it up. Where did this come from? Someone doesn't just sit there and think this up.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at Hollywood, I always find this little, not conspiracy, but I always find this quite interesting when you look at Hollywood and the meaning of behind Hollywood. People may have different meanings behind it but from what I've found, and I do believe this is true, I believe this makes sense. But back in the olden times with magicians and like wizards, what they'd do is their stick, their wand, would be made from the wood of a holly tree.
Mm,
And what wizards would used to do is manipulate and control people. And so that's why it's called Hollywood today, because of that. So Hollywood's just there to manipulate and control people, to
mm,
spread out their message and to keep people in that low vibrational state, to keep them controlled. So it makes sense that Hollywood would know all this sort of stuff putting out there because they're probably controlled by the elites as well, by people higher up. I mean, the Pentagon as well. The Pentagon have their own film budget, which is interesting. They've been,
didn't know that.
yeah, they've put in money or they were involved in like the Transformers film. The Transformers,
Oh
yeah.
wow.
I remember reading about it and watching someone talk about this. So yeah, the Pentagon have their own film budget and they've actually participated in films, Aliens, which is quite interesting. Um, so that's quite something to think about. People can look that up as well and see it. But yeah, they apparently were involved in the event, the Transformer films, and so that's something for people to think about. So why the Pentagon have a film budget? Why would they be involved? And for those who haven't watched, speaking of films, it's one of my not I'd say yeah one of my favorite conspiracy films is Eyes Wide Shut, the Stanley Kubrick
Mm,
film, which people need to look
yeah.
into, and they need to look about how he died, which is interesting because
Yes.
he wanted to once he finished finishing filming Eyes Wide Shut, there were additional 20 minutes that he had in there But after it was watched, the other people, I don't know who involved, I don't know who they were, the names, but the editors or producers or whatever said, no, you can't have that 20 minutes in there. I'm not allowing it. And he was like, no, this, and Stanley Kubrick's strict. He's like, no, nothing gets taken out of my films. I don't remove anything. That 20 minutes is staying in there. And shortly afterwards, he died. Well, died. Don't know what happened to him.
Mm.
Um, and the 20 minutes was removed, and no one knows what that 20 minutes were.
Oh wow!
So yeah,
Because Tom Cruise was the actor, the Tom Cruise
yeah,
who doesn't seem to age.
no, he's an odd one as well. He's a very interesting person to look into. But yeah, people should watch Eyes Wide Shut and see what what that film's about. It's very
Mm.
interesting, secret societies, and it was filmed in the Rothschilds mansion here in the
Yes, it
UK, I
was.
believe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Buckinghamshire. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's interesting. They filmed there out of all
yeah,
places. So
yeah. I've
we should
driven
go.
past that so many times. A lot of people don't realise that the Rothschilds own a huge cigarette manufacturer, Rothmans, and I think
Mm,
there are other brands within that now, but they own literally half of bloody Buckinghamshire.
hmm, yeah.
And that particular their headquarters, their main mansion, they gave it to the National Trust, and on the proviso that they could still have half of the building because they just had a £10 million bill to repair the roof. They gave it to the National Trust. The National Trust repaired the roof. They moved back in.
Hmm,
It's very clever.
yeah.
Horrible bunch of bastards. That oh. And that Jacob. Well, they just lost another one, didn't they? Was it back end of last year in a fire?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm.
I know he went recently.
There's some stuff surrounding that as well, which is all a little bit odd. But maybe the good guys are getting to them. Who
Yeah,
knows?
it's interesting. I don't yeah, it's very interesting.
Here's one for you that I don't know if you know this. Did you know that Walt Disney was an FBI informer?
Wow, I've heard something about that because I know we had the Club 33 in
He
Disney as
did.
well.
Yeah.
I've
And
heard a
Skull
few
and
things.
Bones. He was part of the Skull and Bones.
He's a very interesting one. And he had
Mm,
tunnels underground all
mm,
along is the Disneyland or Disney World in Florida, which I can't remember what it's called. And apparently it's its own state as well, Disney
mm.
in Florida. So
Yes. Yeah, it
own
is. Yeah.
laws. So that's very interesting. How he
Mm,
managed to do that. I remember that's when I first heard about him working with the FBI when I was watching that. So yeah, the stories about him be very interesting.
yeah. He was caught up with MK Ultra and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
It-
dark one.
yeah, he's porn addict as well, from what I remember.
Was he? I didn't know that. I thought he was just a lunatic and a racist. But there we go.
Yeah, no, porn addict as well, apparently. From
Bloody
what I found,
hell.
he's he's a very interesting person to look into as well. And he
Mm.
works with Werner von Braun, best like very close with him. He
Oh, I
was
didn't know that.
professor. Yeah, they've done like old Disney films in black and white back then, obviously, but old Disney films about spaceships and rockets and going to the moon and stuff like that, which is very interesting. When people look at Werner von Braun, they can look into Operation Paperclip, which is
Yes.
the Nazis moving over to the US. So
Yeah.
interesting, he works with them.
Yeah. And apparently they took the head honcho with them, didn't they? On
Yeah.
Tartaria, Australia, we have to, so the show doesn't get any trouble, we have to refer to him as the Chancellor.
Hmm.
So it doesn't get
That's interesting.
demonetized.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. But apparently he
But
was on that sub too. Um,
mm, a lot of people high up were in Operation Paperclip. All the like Joseph Mengele,
yeah.
who then just started doing his mind control programs in the US, like um, MK Ultra. Yeah,
Mm,
just started moved over there, which
yeah.
probably they say has been shut down, but I don't believe that for
No,
one bit. I
no,
believe that's
not at
still
all.
ongoing today. You can look at, and that's
Yeah.
probably where Hollywood comes into it as well. They're probably linked to it. Like
Yeah.
apparently MTV, the program, is their office, their head office is in a Masonic building. So that's interesting as well.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
The weird one is it? Is it Google? I think it might be Google that their PO box is 666.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah, it's bloody everywhere. Ronald Reagan, the old president of America from back in the day, I think the door number of his house was 666, and they
Hmm.
changed it. But it's everywhere. It's
Yeah,
absolutely everywhere. It's all sort of occultist, or well, not occultist. Yes, it's hidden in that sense, but it's sort of very dark and satanic. I think
yeah. Hidden in plain sight, probably the
yeah,
best way to say.
absolutely eyes wide shut.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's all there for people to see because they can't. I think with like the universal laws and how they work, you have to reveal what you're doing.
yeah. They
Otherwise,
worry about
karmic law.
karmic
Yeah,
revenge, and
yeah.
when they meet their maker, they'll be punished for not having told us what they were doing. So they
Hmm.
do it in a way we don't realize it's being done. Is it karmic retribution or something?
Yeah. So they have
Mm,
to, yeah, have to tell us what they're doing, which is probably
mm,
why, you can go back to Hollywood and subliminal messaging and all that sort of stuff.
mm,
That's putting it out there, for us to see, like with AI or aliens or whatever else they're
mm.
doing. You can see it's there. People just think it's entertainment, but really it's them they're putting out what they're doing or what they're planning on doing.
I've got one last question for you, Sam. One last one. Bit of a
Okay.
curved ball. You mentioned it earlier on, sort of indirectly when you talked about Antarctica.
Mm.
Are we on a ball that's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour?
That's an interesting one. Hmm. I don't I don't know, to be honest. It's a tough one. Um, no, you get led to believe your whole life certain things, and then one day you find out that it's not actually true. So with what goes on now, it's hard to say really. I don't know. It's hard to say. Part of me wants to say because what you're led to believe, and it's like sort of back in your subconscious, is what you've been like, it's what you learn about. So part of you wants to say yes, but then the more you look into life, the more you look into like history, the more you look into like conspiracies as well, it sort of changes your mindset a bit and what you believe. So I personally don't know. Um, I couldn't say. I've not. I don't know. I don't know really. I like to. I don't know. Yeah, I can't really answer that. It's a tough one. I don't
It
really know.
is. It is, isn't it? Because the danger with it is that you get shot down, and
Yeah,
that's the real problem with this one. And I get shot down quite a bit, and it's difficult to put your head on the or your neck on the line, your head on the block or whatever, and come out and say
yeah,
what you truly think. But the problem is we don't know, do we? I've said a few times that when you're given two choices, is it spherical ball spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, or is it just some flat plane? That the truth, when you're given just two options, the truth is quite probably something else entirely.
yeah. I mean, when you mentioned the flat plane, so I think that not necessarily a flat plane, but I do believe there's more land that we've not been told about
Mm,
or that we've been shown. I do believe
yeah,
that. I like,
definitely.
especially with Antarctica past there. I do believe there is some more land out there that we've just
Yeah.
not made aware of. Um, and I'd like that. I'd like to explore that as well. I think that'd be really interesting. But I think you'd have to go high up enough to then be able to find out what you're looking at. I
Mm,
don't know. You'd have to go high up in space. And some people don't believe in that either. Um, don't believe space is real. I mean, when you look at the Truman Show, it's quite interesting how one all of a
mm-hmm.
sudden Sirius B or something like that falls out of the sky and it's a light bulb. It's
Yeah.
just a light. So, and that's a really interesting film for people to go and watch.
Yeah, it
Uh,
is.
there's a lot of hidden meanings behind that. So that's a good film for
Yeah.
people.
He's bloody good actor, Jim Carrey, or as of today, I call him Joe Biden. People keep telling me that he's been playing Joe Biden for a very long time.
I've not heard that. That's interesting. I don't know
So
about that,
another
but
deep dive there.
I mean, yeah, you hear about clones or like double agents and stuff like that. Um, I mean, Joe Biden looks like he's been replaced quite a few times. I
Yeah,
wouldn't be surprised
yeah,
if someone else is being him. I mean, you look at the technology we have; they could easily just create like a full-on bodysuit or mask or like
yeah,
that. No, and someone else could just be underneath it. I've seen it before. If people can go see as well, it'd be very easy for them to do something like that. All throughout. his tenure, um, or with other people like
Mm,
double agents. Who knows? But I wouldn't be surprised if someone else behind him,
mm,
behind the mask. It'd be very interesting to find out.
yeah.
Maybe one day we will.
And he did bring out the film The Mask, didn't he? That
Yeah.
so again, maybe maybe this is all universal law or karma that he
Mm,
brings out as The Mask, and several years later he's accused of wearing a mask and being the president of America. But
mm.
who
It's an
knows?
interesting one.
It is. Well, thank you, Sam. Thank you so much
No, thank
for
you.
chatting with me. And if people want to find you, they can do by looking for The Simple Life with Sam on YouTube. But you've also got a Facebook page, haven't you, as well, that
Yeah,
they can
I've got
find.
yeah, Facebook page, just the same, Simple Life of Sam, and then Instagram as well. If people have that, they can look on there. But you can go on YouTube, and you'll see all my podcasts on there and other videos that I've done. And yeah, like, subscribe, follow, comment, do whatever.
Well, I will thank you again for coming on.
No, thank you for having me.
And to everybody that watched, thanks for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, any thoughts. I'm sure Sam will jump on and reply. But until next time, bye for now.